What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock, what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow based off what the charts are showing and based off what the data is suggesting. I'm also going to talk about the biggest events coming out for this week and what under the data is showing for the markets in terms of like the options flow for Tesla and the SPY and what this tells us about the future. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is any of these 12 free stocks could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in a week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at Tesla, this thing was down about 3.64% on the day for Friday, but we are a little bit green in the after hours. Now, I do believe that over the next couple of days, Tesla is in a very, very key zone. Right off the bat, you guys could see that right here around this like 202 to 198 level, we have a very important demand zone. We see lots of institutions buying shares down here. If you guys look at like real-time options data, they like to buy in big bulks down here and they let the price like really run to make money off those trades. Now, what else is interesting about this is the fact that we are kind of like forming almost a double bottom like setup. So I am anticipating a nice push to the upside, at least temporarily. However, there are other catalysts out there that may affect how we push up during the later days of the week. So first off, what's starting us off would be the big midterm elections. This is what a lot of people are looking at. It's going to be huge for markets because we don't necessarily want, or I would say like politicians wouldn't necessarily want the market to be crashing very hard going into these midterm elections. And this is the main reason why a lot of these energy stocks and like CBD stocks are holding up pretty well because they don't want it to be that bad. And this is just an artificial kind of like pump up that we've been seeing. So I am kind of like anticipating some sideways action, maybe the market holding up just for the next like 2 or so days. But then after that, things become even more interesting because if you look at the data, we also have lots of big earnings coming out from Palantir to Disney to Norwegian Cruise Line to AMC. I mean, we have so many big names coming up for the upcoming week. One of the big ones to watch would be Disney because it's going to show how demand is being affected across the globe, and also their earnings are very impactful for the markets as Disney is a big giant. Now, what else is coming out that's not that exciting in my opinion would be the CPI report. It's going to be for the month of October. It's going to be coming out on November 10th, which is this Thursday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So even though the market may like hold up pretty well, at least in the very beginning, for the second half, guys, I'm not as optimistic. I do believe the market might see a big reversal because I'm anticipating that CPI is going to be high again because of the fact that energy makes up a big sector in this report, and because of the fact that I mentioned last week, if you look at the data, gas prices actually went up in the month of October compared to September. This is a sign that it's not going to be the best, guys, which is why I'm very cautious. Now, when it comes to the Fed's policies and how they react to this, it's going to really affect our economy, demand, and also the markets. So many people are now speculating on whether or not we're about to enter economic stagflation, which is essentially associated with high unemployment. And I think that a lot of the things are already there. A lot of the requirements are like here, except for the fact that, in my opinion, I don't necessarily anticipate that unemployment is going to go up to the same levels as like 2008 or the Great Depression, but I do believe it's going to start going up a bit. Now, the reason why I don't think it's going to be as severe is because of the fact that we're still recovering when it comes to jobs coming back. And that's because of the fact that the labor force participation rate dropped very hard in 2020 and still is on a bit of an uptrend. This just means that a lot of people left the job force and they are slowly coming back simultaneously, even as we start to see demand slow down in this economy with higher rates. This means that I don't think unemployment is going to be that bad or like as horrible as those other recessions. And that's the reason why it's going to be very important for the Fed policies to really take this into account. Now, when it comes to Tesla, what's going on with the whole, stock given all the data I mentioned? Well, right now, like I mentioned, Tesla has been underperforming compared to SPY, but if you compare it to like the QQQ, the tech sector in itself is actually showing a lot of weakness, and the QQQ is very similar to Tesla. Now, this is a big sign because right now in the markets, the tech sector tends to actually lead the big runs. So when we're seeing like the tech sector taking these hits, we're seeing Apple and Amazon coming down pretty hard. It's not the best of signs, and it's very like telling that the market has more pain to come. Now, what's interesting about Tesla is when we come down to this very low price pairs ratio level, we tend to see a nice bounce, and Tesla tends to start outperforming the SPY at least a little bit more than before, which is why I do believe Tesla might bounce kind of soon, at least for like the super short term, because we are very close to a demand zone. But then afterwards, and maybe like the second half of this week, things could take a big turn depending on CPI. When it comes to analyst ratings, analysts are very bullish on Tesla. I agree on that. And also, what's very important is we are seeing a lot of this net volume around this lower zone around that 204 range. So that's a sign that there are still lots and lots of activity that's very present. Tesla's up about 53% of the time on Mondays. It's very important to note that, which is why it is a little bit more likely for us to see a green day tomorrow after the big red we saw. And the short interest has been on a slight downtrend, but it did start to come up a bit as Tesla did come down on Friday. So we did see some shorting coming back into the stock. I don't think it's going to be that horrible though if you look at the data, because there is one thing that's important to remember, and that's the fact that the bearish flow is crazy high on Tesla. What does this mean? This means that in the markets right now, it's very clear that there is bearish momentum and the market's likely going to come down soon. However, there's a problem. And the problem is a lot of institutions, a lot of like retail investors, they are loading the boat on the put side. For November 11th on SPY, which is this Friday, we have a 3.72 puts to call ratio. People are loading up on the puts. And if one side is going too far, all right, the market tends to actually see the reversal. I know that it's not always guaranteed, but it is something that incentivizes market makers to push the market up, because SPY's max pain is at about 380 for the week. So I'm going to be very optimistic when it comes to what's happening for the short term. The truth is we could see some like nice push up, I would say, during like the first half of this week, but for the second half we could get a very bearish reversal. It still is very possible, but the odds of that are a little bit lower because of how over leveraged people are on the put side. For Tesla, it's very similar. There were a lot of puts that were bought, but for the week itself, as of right now, last week there were a lot more like calls that were bought compared to before, but for the put side it's a little bit balanced, at least as of right now, but this is likely going to be adjusted depending on the price action. Now, one thing that does concern me about Tesla would be what's going on in China right now. We're seeing more and more of these lockdowns. They want to get rid of the virus entirely. And when they do this, it's not the best for demand. It's not the best for, the production over there as well. So I'm very, very concerned about how this is going to affect the Giga Shanghai. And the thing about Tesla is they actually retaliated against this by actually bringing lots of their employees from China to the Fremont factories to help boost production. So this may affect Tesla's goals, guys. It may affect their production, but as of right now, I'm still going to be very cautious when it comes to trading Chinese tickers because the lockdowns are still going on. When it comes to Elon Musk, I mean, I haven't really seen him say anything about Tesla that's like really significant or huge. He has been tweeting a lot about Twitter, and just wanted to put it out there that we aren't seeing some big updates from him about Tesla, but for the short term, I'm still not necessarily like too worried about this. I just wanted to note that that's the reason why I haven't talked about Elon Musk a whole lot on this channel, because I haven't seen him talking too much about Tesla. Anyways, guys, with all the news and the context out of the way, what could we actually note about the past? Well, in the past, we have a very key demand zone down here, like I mentioned, around this like 203-ish to 198 zone. We tend to see a lot of buyers step in. So if Tesla comes down, if we do end up retesting this zone, it's very possible that a lot of buyers will step in if they are ready to do so. Now, in real time, if you look at options data and Tesla does come down to this range, but the buyers don't come, this thing could actually take a big hit. Now, do I think that's going to happen like immediately tomorrow? I don't necessarily think so. I think we're either going to see a nice pop to the upside or we're going to come down and bounce quite quickly, because my bias is the fact that we have the midterm elections. It would not be good for the markets to just start crashing this quickly. It's going to be very bad for those politicians, for the people kind of like in bed with them, just to be frank with you, which is why I'm anticipating Tesla to get a nice bounce and kind of form a nice bullish double bottom like formation and start to push up at least temporarily. Now, this would be up until this vertical line right here. This is like the midterm election date. But then after this, we have CPI, and that's where everything could change. Now, Tesla makes a big move to the upside. We have some resistance around 209 to 211, which is not super strong. We can actually break that quite quickly. The stronger resistance comes all the way up to this zone right here, around this 221 to 226 zone right here. Tesla has strong resistance. There's a big supply zone right here, at least from the past. The bigger supply zone is around that 228 to about 233 zone. So we have two major supply zones up here. This will likely have a big effect on Tesla, but the bigger one to really note would be this 221 zone, which is where Tesla is going to kind of like struggle a bit, in my opinion. I don't necessarily see Tesla shooting through this super quickly, but I do believe that we could retest it sometime this week. Now, for tomorrow, what am I essentially anticipating? Well, if we go back on the charts, I don't know why that's there. What I'm anticipating is there are two main possibilities. I do believe Tesla's going to push up a bit, but we're either going to come down first, kind of like retest. Let me fix this. Retest this zone right here, and then bounce, or we just push up from the get go, right? I think those are the most likely possibilities. So let me just fix my chart a little bit, make this closer and easier to see. What I'm thinking is going to happen for tomorrow is into open. I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla gets a nice push like this. All right, 211 is going to be some resistance. It's not super strong though. And the thing is, if Tesla keeps going because of midterms, we could see this thing retest 215. Now, if that does happen, and Tesla keeps breaking past the zone, there's a very good chance this thing could fly all the way up to that 221 zone, just like this, if it is going to be artificially propped to the upside. And I'm hoping that we could actually get to this zone, but I do think that Tesla might get a slight rejection, kind of come down a little bit. I do think the market's going to trade a little bit sideways, and Tesla might hold around this 215 zone. Now, another possibility is if we are respecting kind of like a double bottom like formation, and I'd have to like go back on like the 30 minute to show this to you guys, see how this thing can have a double bottom. What else could happen is we come down to this zone. Maybe it's like in the very beginning of the day with crazy volatility. We come down to this like 202 zone, maybe 200, but that would be kind of extreme, and we stay here for a little bit of time, and then we get a big bounce as buyers step in, because historically the buyers did come in this zone. Then we start pushing all the way up. Buyers come in, they push it and push it all the way back to this like 215 or so zone. This would be a more bearish possibility, but overall it would lead to Tesla pushing up a bit. And overall, I do believe it's very possible, right? So either way, I am anticipating a nice bounce for tomorrow. I want to see Tesla push up. The formation does look a little bit more bullish than bearish, but it's going to be very dependent on the options flow. So watch that very carefully, see if the buyers do come in, and I do believe it's very likely they will, given the historical price action. I'm hoping for a nice bounce. If that is not the case, just hypothetically, if Tesla does take a huge hit, we have to try to hold this 198 to 200 zone. If we break below 198, all right, am I saying that's going to happen? I think it's very unlikely considering how close midterms are. But just to prepare you guys, if this thing does come down, we're going to be entering the low of the last like year. Tesla's likely going to come all the way down to 190. That's where we have some very strong support. And that's the next zone for Tesla if this thing breaks below 198. So watch that very carefully. But anyways, I'm not saying that will happen. I think we're more likely to see a nice bounce. So please watch these zones very carefully and be ready for tomorrow. Watch all your indicators very carefully. Watch the price action. Watch how Tesla's performing, and be calm, cool, and collected, guys. I'm anticipating a slight push to the upside given everything going on in the markets. For SPY, I'm hoping that this thing holds up as well. I do anticipate lots of volatility and sideways action on SPY, but I'm hoping it pushes up a little bit more because of midterms. On the VIX, the last thing I want to note was the VIX looks like it's in a very key zone. It looks like this thing is going to come down a little bit more, which could be kind of decent for the markets, because the markets have been trading kind of sideways, but the VIX has been pushing down pretty hard. The VIX looks like it might approach this key support zone around this $22 level, we could end up going there, which would be a little bit more bullish for the markets, maybe because of the fact that midterms are coming just temporarily. But then after that, it could get a big bounce thanks to CPI or something like that later during the week. So watch that very carefully, guys. Anyways, that's essentially what I have for this video. Be calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon because the long-term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.